Welcome, everybody, to Culture Shock Podcast. It's your boy, Pat Bayless. I'm back in the building with a special guest, my dog, one of the greatest pastors on this earth.
Okay.
You know, I'm speaking high, but I'm speaking the truth.
Yeah.
The way he teaches is super important. And today, he's really going to help me learn, and he's really going to tell y'all about really living in the overflow and trying to get into the overflow of what God has for us.
Yeah.
So without further ado, I just want to welcome Pastor Stephen. How are you?
Great. Good to be back.
Yes, exactly.
I feel like I didn't leave.
Yeah, exactly. Technically, you did.
Technically, I did.
Yeah, exactly. First of all, I kind of just want to recap a little bit about Bible study, man. You know, 12 weeks of Bible study, people really enjoyed it. So many people reached out to me just with praise for you, for me, for the platform. Also, frantic, thinking that, oh my God, so he's never gonna talk again. He's never coming back from Bible studies with that.
Relax.
Yo, when I tell you they was frantic, they was frantic.
Really?
But it's cool because
Yeah.
it just shows that they're catching on to it. So for me, that's a beautiful thing. And
that is.
What I've actually talked to my cousin about is doing, until we get back together again, is doing something where we can still do something on Wednesdays and really talk about what we learned for the past 12 weeks and share, have more people come up and share. Because, you know, with me and you up there, some people are going to be like,
That's
I'm a little
true.
scared to go up there. I don't know Pastor Steve. Pastor Steven talks.
You got a smart cousin.
Yeah, he talks, you know, Pastor Steven talks perfect and he knows the Bible. Some people may be intimidated. I'm not saying that's what they said.
Right.
But
I
I'm
understand.
saying if I joined the Bible study,
I did.
I would be like, oh, I don't know if I, can go up there
understand.
or not. So that's what I'm thinking about doing is starting. I think it'd be cool for
I think so.
people to, continue to do that and maybe just push into learning more.
I think that's a great idea. The thing about this, that we have a catalog, I say, of the 12 weeks of the journey that we took. And so each person, even if you go back and rewatch it and come up with your own thoughts, take little pieces of it, and they can, again, I think our Bible study was to place it in your lap so that you can digest it and decipher what you need from it, and then see how it applies to you, and then tell us, how does this affect you? Have you been through this experience? I think that's what we want to do. We want to make the Bible apply to your everyday life. And then we are like reliving experiences where you can say, oh, next time around, because of this information, I can do something better.
Right.
I'm smarter now because of the Bible study. So if this life experience comes back around, I'm better prepared and equipped to handle it.
Right.
I think that's what we really want a Bible study to be.
Absolutely. Right? And I think with this episode too, living in the overflow actually kind of embodies what that Bible study was. In Ecclesiastes, really just living the right way, but living the right way, the way God has really prepared in the Bible for us to live.
That's what it is.
And what he wants us to do, and living in that overflow of what we were really brought here to do. And what we were really brought here to be. In that regard. What do you find right now in 2025? What do you find that one of the biggest struggles for people is right now when it comes to people? Everybody wants to live in the overflow. I mean, let's just think about it. Like, everybody wants to live with the most money. Everybody wants to live with the most cars, with, the best wife, and this and that, the third. But when God explains living in the overflow, for one, what does he mean by that?
Right.
And two, what do you see as like the biggest struggle for people in 2025 to really get to that point with trusting God?
Okay. Great questions, by the way. So when I hear overflow, that's still churchy, biblical language. I think it's, living our best life. It's probably the way I will put it to an audience that's trying to understand what we're saying. How do we live our best life? And I think living living the life that God created you to have, right? I think what happens is, why we don't, is fear. I think fear plays a big part in why people don't. Uncertainty, and a big S word called settle, right? I think we settle into careers that we probably didn't want to have. You know, we probably aspired to be doctors and end up settling for something else because at that particular time, maybe the money, maybe sadness, maybe heartbreak, maybe you somewhere down the line you lost passion and the desire to keep pushing yourself to go further. I think all of these different things have cost us really trying to tap in our full potential of who we are. I don't think there is, I do think that there is a large portion of society that are not doing what they say they had dreams of doing. Right. I do believe if you go around the room, not this room, but if you go around the room or you take a survey and you say, what did you dream about doing when you was this age and what are you doing now? And you'll see that there is a big gap in between those things. And I think what Bible study was trying to do with God, it tries to close the gap. Who God created you to be and the life that you're living right now. I know I'm saying a lot right now.
No.
Okay.
Keep going.
Okay, there's a gap.
All right.
What God created, God wants you here, you living here. And I think the more we get to know God, and if you can see my hands, I'm very visual, the more God tries to shrink that gap. And I think Bible study, getting closer to God, because he knows what he's created you to be, helps us keep aspiring to be that and do that.
Right.
Yeah.
What about the people when it comes to faith, right? And having this faith, and you know, they always say have the faith of a mustard seed, right?
Yeah.
But having this faith and having a lot of poor examples to give us, right? An example that I've heard and I'm going to use and steal for this pod. I'm saying I'm stealing it, but I heard it.
He's stealing it. He's saying
yeah, I'm definitely stealing it. You ever seen a parent, they go out, they look fly, they got everything on, and then their kid is dressed in Walmart. Not to say Walmart stuff's the bad stuff, but Walmart stuff, hair's not done.
Right.
They're unkept.
Right.
It's a reflection of who? The parent. Not the child, the parent. God doesn't want us to live a lot of the ways that we're living.
Right.
And does God care to take on the, you know, what his reflection would look like? But in that regard, when people want to go to church, when people want to step out, when people want to say, I'm going to take this leap of faith, I'm going to trust God. Don't you feel like there's a lot of poor examples, or at least if there is good examples, the poor examples always find their way to the top? Like that's the one thing that boils to the top and raises.
Yeah. It's poor examples is doubt. We have the tendency to say that could be him, but it can't be me.
Right.
Right. He's good enough to have that. I probably not. She probably can do it. I'm not. I think there's something called self-reporting that, now the thing with self-reporting, it's how you're reporting yourself basically is in counseling or psychology, it calls self-reporting, where sometimes we exaggerate, but then sometimes your worst enemy is you, what you say to yourself. And you will say, everybody else but me, right? They're gifted enough. They're talented enough. They're created enough. Look at the family they came from. Look at the parents they have. Look at the resources that they have. I don't have that. And so we are already canceling ourselves out, and we fill in our minds with the consequences before we even tried. We're already saying how we're already living in our loss before even taking the step. So that's another thing. And or we may take a step and fail, and we say, that's it. We don't keep at it. And I think a lot of these examples of faith, of success stories, that we only see them at the top, and we don't understand how many times they fail, how many times they went through disappointment, but it was that urge, that ambition to say, I know this is not for me. Where I am right now is worse. I rather live life failing upward than failing and staying downward, if that makes sense. I'd rather keep reaching and failing than not reach at all.
Right. And that was going to be one of the next questions I asked was how much of our quote unquote limit that we're willing to go limits God and limits God's abundance that he wants to give to you because, you know, they all say pain tolerance, right? You have pain tolerance and how much pain tolerance can you actually handle or how much burden can you actually handle? Right. But how much of us just telling in ourselves, like you said, in our head, we're saying, man, I can't do that. Yeah. You want me to go like for me, I told that story about standing in front of, I don't know, it was like probably 70 people, 50 to 70 people, doing a podcast in front of people. Now I do it in front of cameras. Right. It's me and you talking. Right. But it's in front of cameras. When I get in front of people, I start sweating, like nervous, you know, anxiety. And that day I was like, man, I don't know if I could do this. Like my limit is reached right now. I don't know if I could do this. So I'm over there drinking and I'm drinking a whole bottle and I don't feel it. Right. Because I'm so
you numbed yourself.
Yeah,
you're trying
like
to numb yourself.
Right. And I got up there and did it. Right. And the way I felt was amazing after. Right. And that moment is just to me an example of I thought my limit was this. Yeah. I was scared to do it. I didn't have confidence to do it. Right. But the moment I got that feeling or God placed in my head, you got this, it changed the game. Yeah. You know, it changed the game. Have you run into that in your own personal life where you've stepped into a quote unquote arena and thought maybe you couldn't perform at the level that you actually are really truly capable of?
Absolutely. But first let me just say, Pat was capable to do that without the alcohol.
Right.
Yeah. That's in him. Yeah. So just in case somebody be like, well, this is what I exactly. I'm a surgeon and I'm about to perform surgery and I don't have the confidence. Let me get some Hennessy. I don't want to be that person. Just in case. No, I think that's what faith is. Faith is knowing that you can't do it, but because of God, you can. God will always put things on your plate that is bigger than you. Just so everyone understand. If you can do it, that's not faith. If it's within your limits, you don't need to have faith because it's within your limits. You need faith for outside your limits, for when you don't see the staircase and God is saying, take a step or jump, right? If you could see the step, you're going to take the step. Right. But if you can't see it, you're going to say no. Faith is not seeing the step and stepping anyway, right? I don't have it all, right? I don't have the money. You didn't have all the money for this. Right. You didn't. But you stepped out and all of a sudden doors start to open up because you believe this is what God created you to do. What God wants is you to trust him, right? Trust that I have provided a way for you. But if I give you all the details, then that's not faith. Yeah. That's just you operating in, I'm only going to move when I know everything is sure. Right? There's no faith in that. If you're sure, there's no need for faith. You're just sure. Yeah. But what happens is with God, the way he does things is that's where I'm going to trust him. I don't know. This is far beyond my limit. I know I'm a 10. And right now, the job is requiring that I be a 15. But I don't have it, so I'm not going to apply. No, apply anyway. Apply anyway. I know how many stories I've heard of people who applied to jobs who they believed they weren't qualified for and were stressed out for it. And then I had to remind them, right? I had to remind them, but this is how God operates. And that when they went on the job that they thought they were disqualified for, that they wasn't qualified for, end up succeeding. And they now understand, I knew I wasn't qualified, but faith. I think that's what it is, that we all have to operate in this level of sometimes we may not know everything. We might be uncertain, but we have to be able to push ourselves to the limit and say, well, God, if this is what I believe this place is not for me. Right. I know you heard that. Like, this level ain't for me.
Absolutely.
I don't know if I'm going to get there. So I don't know if I'm going to get there, but I know I don't belong here. Yep. Have you been there?
Absolutely.
Okay. And so once again, that gap between I know I don't belong here. So what are you going to do to get out of here? To get there? in between that is faith.
Yes.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, that's what we have to, that the urge of no longer wanting to stay the same, where being the same is too painful. It doesn't hurt enough yet. And I think that's why people don't change or launch out in faith, because where you are hasn't hurt you enough yet. But when it has hurt, well, you say, nah, I can't stay here anymore. This ain't for me.
Gotta make a move.
Yeah, I gotta make a move. This surrounding ain't for me. The people around it, what they're talking about, who they are, how they talk, how they live, this ain't for me. I gotta do something. I think that's when we start tapping in. I don't see it all, but what I see, I'm going to try.
To piggyback off of what you said, I spoke to a very lovely, godly lady today that actually talked about that. She actually talked about applying for certain jobs of that nature, and she was like, "I don't really feel I'm qualified. I don't think I'm gonna get these jobs, but I did it anyways." And I told her, just take it. Listen, God's gonna make you qualify for jobs you think you're not qualified for.
Correct.
So I think that's interesting that you brought that up. And also getting to the pod, I don't know if I really ever told the story about like how we're here now, but it was that point where, I was shooting last year. I was shooting every Thursday. I was shooting multiple episodes, and I was pumping out episodes every week. Boom, 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 boom. And then I hit a little rut, like a little bump in the road.
Yeah.
And, shout out to the people that, obviously gave me that studio and, let me borrow the studio and let me shoot in there, very appreciative for that.
Yeah.
But I hit like a bump in the road, nothing I had to do with them, but just what I had to do with me.
Yeah.
I didn't know where to go. And there was a point where I really asked myself, like, man, how do I keep doing this?
Right.
How do I keep doing this? And, I got blessed. Obviously, me and Zach came along, and me and Zach just had a random conversation one day, right? And I'm in a spot where, man, I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Right.
Me and Zach shoot one day, and I'm like, I love this. Like this, the setup, the feel, the visual, like what we're the punch behind what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Like I love this, and it's making an impact.
Yeah.
And then after that, I'm like, man, where do I go with that? Because with everything, money is involved. That's just how it is in life.
Right.
So with that, I'm like, man, where do I go? And then here comes, a great family member of mine, the muscle of the pod. He's been on pods before.
Yeah. Is the muscle? He's the
muscle of the pod.
Behind me?
Yeah, behind you. He's the muscle of the pod. But man, he comes along and he's.
You guys don't see him, but we see him.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like, man, I believe in you.
Yeah.
I didn't, not that I didn't think he didn't believe in me, but I didn't think anybody at that point. I'm setting notes in my phone. This is what I want to buy down the line. This is what I want to buy down the line. It's the low budget stuff, but this is what I want to buy down the line. All right, if I get this and I get this, all right, I'll get there. And lo and behold, God blessed me, opened up a door, and I was able to not only I really didn't even get the stuff that I had in my notes. I was able to upgrade higher.
This is
than what I, you know what I'm saying?
This is the upgrade. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was able to upgrade higher than what I thought because of God's blessing and God's desire and an overflow of what He wanted for me. So I know that God uses vessels.
Yeah.
And He uses people to sometimes give you the catapult to get where He needs you to get.
I think, again, there are stories of faith and success. Now, if that person is really motivated enough to do their research. So if I was that person anywhere, if I'm going to give you advice, that I would research success stories, read their bios of how they was able to reach the levels of that they are. And I could tell you they had stories started out similar to yours, that there are ample success stories out there if you do the research, and that you have to be willing to drown out the doubt, right? That's what it is. You really have to drown out the doubt in your own head that you can't, right? And I'm not saying you be unrealistic. Here's the thing. This is not any kind of fantasy, because I know some people are fanatical and their fantasies, and they say, I want to be president tomorrow. See, I'm not. I'm not going to be president tomorrow. That's just a fantasy, right? If I say, I believe, now I could believe I can be, but tomorrow is ridiculous. I mean, realistic faith in that, okay, where I am right now, I do not like it. So I'm going to start sending out my resume to places of my dream job, right? And even if I'm in the mailroom of my dream job, I still believe while I'm there, I'm going to be applying for positions from the mailroom there. I mean, you have to figure out how to obtain the best version of yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. You somewhere along the line, you have to, if you can't go directly from A to B, then you have to go 1A, C. You have to figure out these small steps towards that. But I believe you have to map out where you want to be and don't stop trying to pursue that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think you can, like you say, you can learn from reading on people, and some of the people even, you keep in your circle that it's like, man, I seen the girl from XYZ. I known them 8 years ago, and now with their, you know what I'm saying? And there's different things and different steps and different people that have, been in their lives and stuff like that. But then there's also that thing of like, you got to keep God at the forefront.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how?
Yeah, absolutely.
For people that are struggling with this, because it sometimes is a struggle for me, not all the time, but I would say sometimes, keeping God at the forefront and giving God our time. Because we make time to watch Netflix.
Yeah.
We make time to watch the Knicks game. Yeah. We make time to eat lunch at work. But do we take the time to sit and pray and praise him also during the day? Yeah. Obviously people could stress it's important, but how did you, when you first, I know you've always been, in church, but
in church, but not necessarily in God.
That's what I'm saying. So when you got in God, how did you maneuver time in your life to even just pray?
Yeah. I think for me, it has to be, I don't want to necessarily say schedule, right? But it is where I would say, okay, when I wake up, I'm going to pray. Yeah. Before I touch my phone, scroll through the phone, check emails, I'm going to pray. Before I go to bed in the night, I'm going to pray. So it's kind of, you create these rhythm, you create these patterns of where I'm going to spend time doing this. I'm going to carve out time, because one of the reasons why we don't is we say we're busy. The businesses of our schedules, right? We say we're busy. So instead of doing that, then I want to carve out time to do it. Whether if I was on the train, if I pray on the train, or have some kind of devotional where I'm reading something. I use my commute time to read. If as long as you're not driving, but I use that commute time to read the Bible a little bit, even if it's 15 minutes. My lunch hour, you have a lunch hour, and that's all you have at work. So you use 15 to 20 minutes of that time to devote. I'm going to devote this to praying or reading the Bible. I think we all. Okay, using the bathroom. If you like me, if you like me, that sometimes you go in the bathroom and you spend a long time. I think most men we take our phone.
Yes, it's our place of peace, especially you got kids.
So I heard a muscle just laugh in the back right there.
That's a place of solace. You lock that door. And
you use that. You use that time. I think there's a lot of ample time, miscellaneous time within our schedules, that if we really tally it all up, we have time. It's just that we use it on different things. And it's so for me, if I'm committed to it, if you're committed to anything, if it means something to you, you make time for it, right? And so I think for me, that's what I did. I just added it to my schedule until it became part of me, where I don't have to schedule it anymore. And that's what it is.
I think certain times, like for me, I've had, especially recent, because like just scheduling wise, like my time has become tighter. Everything has become tighter, you know. But I'm blessed, and that's that moment when I think to myself, that's kind of where I go into like praying and just worshiping in that moment, because I'm like, I'm blessed that I have all these opportunities to do these things.
Absolutely.
I'm sitting here complaining for the first 30 seconds. I'm like, man, I got to do this. I'm not going to get home till 8 o'clock.
You could
I'm
not be doing anything.
Exactly. I could be not doing anything. I could not have what I have. You know what I'm saying? And then you sit and you're like, But like, thank God that I could do this. Thank God that I have the opportunity to be here, be there, and do this with people. You know, and I think spending time with God is sometimes it's sad, but it's like people that say I don't got time to go to the gym or I don't got time to do this. Like, you can make time for God, and God at the end of the day, when you're going through the worst time, you get diagnosed with something or something that's not good. You don't want to. What's the first thing you're gonna do?
Hey, God, pray for me.
Yes.
I think we got to get to the point where I was going to say that right now we have to schedule God in our life. Right. I think that's what it is. You start out as scheduling God in your life, and eventually you get to the point where you schedule your life around God. Right. That's the point we want to get to. I know everybody's not there yet, but I think you do have to take time out and schedule your life around God until you get to the point where you say, I'm going to schedule my life. I'm going to schedule my life around God instead of scheduling God into my life. Right. Absolutely. That's what we start off that way. I start out that way. Look at my schedule. Oh, God fits here. Yeah. Oh, God fits here. Oh, let me squeeze him into the 15 minutes. And now I know that sounds crazy. Yeah. But thankfully, we serve a God, right? That it's not, he's not petty.
Yes.
He's not petty, and he understands the heart. Again, it's not that I want to do this, but I'm trying my best to make sure that every single, the moments of my life, you are a part of it. Right. And I know if I don't schedule it this way, I'm going to miss out or my schedule's going to take over. Right. So we start out that way, scheduling, and then until now, no. God, this is God, and life is scheduled around that.
How many things do you think that we truly miss out on that God throws in front of us? That God literally says, here you go.
Yeah.
How many things do you think just because whether we just naive or we just blinded, like how many opportunities and things does God truly throw at us daily that we swing and miss at? Or don't see?
I think our pace of life, because we're so in a rush. I think I did tell you the story when I just moved here. I used to just try to get from Brooklyn up here, and I'm not gonna say how fast I was driving because I don't want. There's a cop behind me too, and so I don't want to incriminate myself So I used to just fly from Brooklyn here, and I think one time someone was telling me that there was like a barbecue spot up here, and I had and it was like, there's a big sign. How can you miss it? I was like, I've never seen on your sign. You lying. I was like, no, there's a big, I think it's called Smoky Bones.
Smoky Bones, yep.
Okay, so he used to tell me there's a sign. It's impossible to miss that when you're driving, you'll see it.
Yes.
I've never saw it.
That's on the LIE, right?
It's on the LIE.
Yes, yep.
It's coming up. Never saw it. I think it's around exit 60
or something, yep.
Never saw it. And he used to tell me all the time, it's there. That's pretty much because of my speed. I miss that sign all the time. How many of us, because of our speed, we miss time to, exit?
Oh, yeah, heck yeah.
So I think that's perfect then for you to understand how many signs that God can, but be so busy, we so distracted by so many other things that even or we don't like the sign that he's given us. And we say, no, send me something else.
Yeah.
I don't like this one. Yeah, this ain't
Can I
it.
get the next one?
Yeah. Quit.
What's the next card behind that card?
And the relationship next card. Come on, God. Yeah. Quit her. She's not good for you. Okay, what's the next? Yeah. No. That's not. So how many times has God sent us that? And we say, no. That's not the card I want. That's not the sign I want. Send me something brighter and better. So I think that's what it is. It's we our movements, we can be distracted, and we can just deny the sign that God has given us. And we say, nah, we don't like this. Give me something else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You being a pastor, obviously, how many people, I think is a very interesting thing. How many people do you see that act like they need a new word from God rather than what's been already written?
Yeah. So I got to fight through. There is this sense of entitlement with not only this generation, but multiple generations where they feel entitled, where everything has to be personalized for themselves.
Yes.
And if it's not personal for them. And if they don't want to accept it, then they say no. Just what I'm saying. God would say, red, and we'll say, but I want blue.
Yep.
And God said red, but I want blue. And we won't stop. We won't stop until we get the blue. And God, you don't give me red. I'm going to find another route or something else to give me the blue that I want. And then when we get the blue that we want, and it makes us crazy, we go back, oh my God, I should have took the red. So that's just human nature. I think we want what we want. We like what we like, and we desire what we desire. And no matter how much, it's me trying to get people to understand the will of God more than your wants, and teaching them the will of God, to sacrifice some of the things that we want for the greater good that God has for us. But that takes time. It takes a level of maturity that I'm not going to act like, I'm all the way there yet. Right. I argue with God all the time. Right. You know that too. But he can handle that. As long as at the end of the day, I say, okay, you know what? Not my will.
Right. It's your will.
Yeah.
Last thing I want to talk about is forgiveness. Forgiveness is a big topic.
That's what we call the F word.
Yeah, the F word. Yeah. For real. Forgiveness is so layered, in my opinion.
It is.
Because people, when they think about forgiveness, a lot of people is forgiveness with a underline under.
Yeah.
It's like, I forgive you.
Yeah, but it's a clause.
I don't forget. I forgive you.
Yeah.
But if you do it to me again, I'm bringing it up again. I forgive you.
Right.
And it's always going to be stained against you forever. I mean, listen, I joke. I'm serious, but I'm joking. But there's a lot of girls in this world that probably say they forgive me, but if you ask them about me, they say there's a stain on my name.
Yeah.
Not even to sound like a hoe, because that sounds crazy. Yeah. But Lord forgive me for that. But yeah.
It did. But
it did come off like that.
Yeah.
But learning and lessons, that forgiveness word, because for me, it took me a while to forgive certain people in my life. But I feel like everybody in my life that I've truly forgiven.
Right.
Even if they continue to do bad stuff, like, still, I forgive you for what you do, what you're doing, and who you are, because you to me, you just don't know God.
Right.
Not even to come off like that, but you don't know God the way I do, but you don't understand, the meaning of what God wants for you the way I may.
Right.
What do you tell people that really have trouble forgiving people?
Well, first, let me just say, forgiveness requires faith. Forgiveness is not a feeling. Right. So a lot of time when you ask somebody to forgive them, it's like, I don't feel like it yet. I'm not there yet. Forgiveness is not a feeling. Forgiveness is a choice. You decide to forgive. It begins with that. Now, you can decide to forgive even when you're still hurt. And that's the thing that people don't understand. Like, you can decide to forgive someone even while that person is still not sorry. But forgiveness is not for them. It's for you. Forgiveness is for you, because if you don't, you lock yourself into those emotions too. You lock yourself into that bitterness.
Yep.
And what we say metastasize, and it becomes cancerous. And you get bitter and grumpy. Like, some people say, "Oh, I forgive you," but you're just talking about I'm not gonna say your hoeing days, but you did, right? He did. I did it.
I did that.
He did that. He was confessing. See these mics and this light.
These mics are therapeutic. They're all therapeutic.
These mics and this light is how you confessing.
Yep.
They're carrying that, and they have not released you. They think that they're holding you, but they're holding themselves up too. Right. They have not moved off it too. And so unforgiveness is a prison that locks you into his past, in somebody's past. And I have to be able to move on from that moment, because if I don't move on from that moment or let go of that moment, I stay stuck. That's why years pass and there are people still stuck in something that happened 10 years ago, because they refuse to let go. And forgiveness is that release. Listen, I am going to release you from all that you did to me, even if you are not sorry about it. But I understand that it's too painful for me to hold on to all the things that you've done to me. Right. So I'm releasing myself from what you did to me. And I think that's what people needs to understand. Forgiveness is not how you feel. You're going to go through years of probably still not wondering why this person did this to you, why they had to treat you that way. But forgiveness is more of a decision. It's a choice. This is why when Jesus was on the cross, while they was crucifying him, he said, Father, forgive them. Like, I don't know how he can do it to people that was beating him and spitting on him. And in that moment says, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. But he understood, I can't allow myself to get locked in this prison of unforgiveness because it's too painful to carry around that hurt. So I'm releasing you. You know, yeah, you may not say sorry. That's all right. I'm not thinking about it. Now, do I forget?
No.
Right. No. I'm wiser now how much I can trust you.
Right.
And now I'm wiser in it that there are boundaries that I set that you will never get close to me again.
Yes.
In that type of fashion. But I forgive you, but I'm never going to let you get close to me again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things on the flip side of that for me was when I was about 21, I dated somebody, man. And there was a lot of good times, but I did, I'm not going to lie, I did them wrong. Like I wrongly did them. So much so that I felt, as I grew, I felt bad about it. Not to say I didn't feel bad about it in the moment, but I was selfish.
Right.
So I started to feel bad about it. And man, they, like, when I tell you, they would say not the meanest things to me, but pretty much the meanest things to me. And they would sometimes even be through a third party. They'd be like, don't ever bring up that person's name, tell them go get hit by a bus. Like that
That's
type
crazy.
of, you know, but that was, they didn't want to forgive me.
I got you.
I will say this. Years down the line, I want to say this is maybe 4 or 5 years ago, my mom, who knew her, had to get some type of checkup, and she had worked in like an office.
Okay.
And they had to, I think it was like one of those scans, and they had to put like the headphones on.
Okay.
And she was like, what do you want to listen to my mom? And my mom was like, play whatever. Now, everybody that knows me know I'm a big Chris Brown guy, right? And she knew that. So my mom was like, she put on Chris Brown. So obviously she remembered.
She remembered.
And then she said that when she got up, like out of the whatever, she was like, tell your son that I forgive him. To me, when I heard that news, my mom was like, well, don't even try to reach out to. I said, I'm not. I said, for me, I felt like, nah, I didn't. And that's what I'm saying. That's
I thought you was like,
oh, what's up? Nah. For me, I was like, the weight of, low key, it left like a little stain or weight on me. And when that happened, I'm not gonna lie, I felt like shackles or whatever you want to call it released off me. I was like, wow, like she said it. Maybe she gave me a while ago, I didn't know. But to hear it, or at least, you know, to hear it through my mom, but it came from her.
Have you ever, did you tell her that you were sorry when you was?
Yes, I tried. I tried to reach out sincerely. I tried to reach out, but it was at that point, it wasn't hearing nothing. But just the fact that just randomly, even after, you didn't have to speak about me at all, you know? And just to say, listen, like, just tell him I forgive him.
I think you added another side. The flip side is forgiving yourself.
Yes.
And not waiting on that person to release you. But you got to be able to release yourself, because what if she didn't? You know, what if she didn't tell your mother that? What if they didn't have that interaction? Would you say you'd be holding yourself in prison forever? And again, it's not a feeling, it's a choice.
Yes.
Where even if she didn't, if you sincerely reached out and apologized for what you did, and she didn't accept it, but at least you did it with the sincerity of your heart. You have to be able to forgive yourself. Because there's a lot of people that they're carrying around unforgiveness in themselves, waiting for that person. Now, what happens if that person that you are carrying around that level of unforgiveness is dead? Where you're never going to get, I release you. Where you're never going to hear the words, it's okay. You know, what do you do in those particular situations? Do you carry that with you to your grave? And I'm saying that's not healthy. I think one of the things is that once you're sincerely able to say sorry, and if you can say sorry, it's never going to be a feeling. You got to be able to release yourself, because unforgiveness is a prison. And like you said, and not me, it felt like a weight. It feels as if you are chained to a moment and you can't move. Now, you have locked yourself to you're in a 10-year-old or 15-year-old prison.
Yep. It's true.
Meanwhile, your life is going around, you caged.
Yep.
Yeah, that's not the way God wants you to live. Yeah.
Before we get out of here, Pastor, I just want you to explain what your life, obviously, obviously the main thing was living in the overflow that we talked about. But what has your life felt like since you felt living your best life? Obviously, you're going to go through things every single day, trials and tribulations, like everybody else.
Yeah.
But what has it felt like to be in God's presence, to know that I'm living in this overflow of what God has put me here to do?
Yeah. I think I said it on the last time there's a level of joy. A happiness that comes, of course, there's stressful moments, obviously, down moments, but I think that there is a charge that I have for life where I know that what I'm doing is what I'm supposed to do. There's just a level of joy. There's a level of peace of mind. Like that I'm not frantic. I'm not rushed. There are obviously some things in my life that I want to be fulfilled, but I understand I'm in the space where God needs me to be. And there is a level of peace that comes associated in doing what you are purposed to do, right? And you just feel, I can't fail, right? That's I can't. There's no failure in this. There's no wanting to quit this. That if this was to leave me, I think life will be, this is why when I'm dead. But there's a level of joy and peace. The same thing happened to me. Don't worry. Yeah. There's a level of joy and peace, stillness, happiness that comes associating understanding what God wants you to be. Now, are there other levels that I want to get to? Yeah, but it's one of those things where you're on the right track. Right. You don't feel lost. I don't know about if anybody ever was trying to go somewhere. Just think of it. You ever trying to go somewhere and your first, few turns on this journey, you get lost and you're circling, you're asking for directions. You're asking like, where's this? And everybody's pointing to different. I'm very visual, so this is why I talk this way. So for those that understand, I do these visuals so you understand what I'm trying to say. You ask somebody and they give you these visual signposts. And then you start to see, the pink, he said pink sign, make a left. And then all of a sudden, everything that they tell you starts to click. Starts to add up. And you realize you're heading in the right direction where now you're not as nervous. You're not as antsy. You're not worried so much about everybody around you.
You're calm.
There's a calmness because you're on the right road. I think that's what happens when you're living in the overflow. I'm not where I need to be, but I know I'm on the right road. Absolutely. And I think that's what it is. Understanding your purpose, at least I'm not all the way there. I have not arrived yet, but I know I'm on the right road. Absolutely. And I think that's what it is right now that I'm living. I'm on the right road.
Pastor, thank you again for your time. I know your time is precious. I appreciate you always being here. Yeah. It means a lot. Thank you again. And everybody out there, continue to try to live and, live in the overflow. Continue to try to find God. Pastor Stephen is a great example of a man that is humble and driven to be the best version of himself that God wants him to be. Yeah. And anybody out there that's struggling, please reach out to me or Pastor Stephen. Anybody that wants more information on things, just reach out. You could do that through socials. And eventually down the line, we'll be in season 2 of Bible study. So we're excited for you guys to be there. And with that being said, it's another episode of the Culture Shock Podcast. We're out here.